At age 65, something strange happens. Millions of Americans finally reach the milestone they've been waiting for. The age when Medicare kicks in, and yet a surprising number of them still don't retire. Not because they can't afford to, but because they don't feel ready to leave. Think about that. You could have enough saved. Your portfolio could support you using something like the 4% rule, and still, you stay. So if it's not the money, what is it? In this video, we're going to uncover the invisible system that keeps people working long after they've already won the financial game. Let's say you've done everything right. You spent decades working, saving, investing. You watched your portfolio grow year after year. At some point, you even ran the numbers. You looked at what you spend each month after taxes, compared it to what your portfolio could generate using something like the 4% rule, and realized it might actually be enough. On paper, the plan works, and yet your life doesn't change. You still wake up to the same alarm. You still check your email before your coffee. You still structure your entire week around a job you've been telling yourself you don't need anymore. And every time you think about leaving, something subtle pulls you back. It sounds responsible at first. Maybe one more year, just until things feel more certain. Let me wait until 65 when Medicare kicks in. All of those reasons feel logical, even smart. But here's the part most people miss: the decision to stay rarely comes from the spreadsheet. It comes from something much quieter and much more powerful. Because the moment you stop asking how much money you have and start asking what that money actually has to replace everything about retirement stops looking simple. The first dependency is the one everyone sees: the paycheck. If you leave your job, the paycheck stops. That's the simplest equation in the world. So naturally, that's where most people focus. They stare at their portfolio and ask a single question: is it big enough? But that question is incomplete, because your portfolio is just a number. What actually matters is what that number can do. Specifically, what kind of income it can produce. Think about how you view your job. You don't say, "My job is worth this total lifetime amount." You think in terms of monthly income. What hits your bank account? What pays your bills? What supports your life? Your portfolio has to be translated the same way. This is where concepts like the 4% rule come in. Not as a magic answer, but as a way to convert a static number into a living, breathing income stream. And once you do that, something interesting happens. You realize your portfolio doesn't have to replace your entire salary, because in reality, your future income doesn't come from just one place. There's Social Security. There might be a pension, maybe rental income, maybe even part-time work. All of those pieces add up. So the real question isn't, can my portfolio replace my paycheck? It's what portion of my lifestyle still needs to be covered, and where will each piece come from? And for many people, that gap is much smaller than they expected. Which leads to the second dependency: health insurance. This one feels even more non-negotiable, especially in the US, where so much of your coverage is tied to your employer. It creates a powerful belief you can't retire before 65, because that's when Medicare begins. So people wait, even when they have more than enough saved, even when their portfolio could support them. They stay for the insurance. But here's the shift. Health insurance isn't a barrier. It's a line item. Yes, it can be expensive, but so is everything else you already account for in your budget. The difference is psychological. Your employer makes it invisible, automatic, easy. Once you step outside that system, it suddenly feels complicated. But the options are there. There's ACA marketplace plans. There's COBRA. There are private policies. There's coverage through a spouse. None of these are new. None of these are hidden. They're just not packaged for you. And that packaging is what keeps people in place. Because your employer doesn't just provide benefits. It removes friction. It makes decisions for you. It creates a sense of security that feels difficult to replicate on your own. So even when the numbers work, the system still holds. And that's the part most people don't realize, because the paycheck and the insurance. Those are just the visible ties. The harder ones to break are the ones you don't see until you try to walk away. This is where things get uncomfortable, Because once you strip away the paycheck, and once you realize health insurance is just another expense, you're left facing something much harder to quantify. Your life has been structured for you. For years, maybe decades, you didn't have to ask what your day looked like. You didn't have to decide where to be at 9 a.m. or what mattered at 2 p.m. Your calendar told you. Your role told you. Your job quietly organized your time, your priorities, even your sense of progress. And then you imagine removing it. No deadlines, no meetings, no one expecting anything from you on a Tuesday morning. At first, that sounds like freedom. But if you let that picture sit for a moment, it starts to feel different. Because structure isn't something you notice when it's there. You only feel it when it's gone. And without it, something else begins to surface. A question most people have been avoiding for years. Who am I if I'm not this job? That question doesn't show up on a spreadsheet. It doesn't get solved by a bigger portfolio or a better withdrawal rate. It lingers in the background, shaping decisions in ways that don't look logical from the outside. That's why people say they'll retire in 10 years, and then say the same thing again 10 years later. That's why someone can be financially ready and still feel completely unprepared. Because the real dependency was never just financial. It was structural. It was psychological. It was identity. And until those pieces are replaced or even understood, walking away won't feel like freedom. It will feel like loss. So this is where the idea of firing your employer actually begins to make sense. It's not about walking into your boss's office and turning in your notice tomorrow. That part is easy. The harder part is separating your life from everything your job has been quietly providing. Because once you see it clearly, your employer was never just paying you. It was structuring your time. It was shaping your relationships. It was reinforcing your identity. It was giving you a built-in sense of purpose. And if you remove all of that overnight, of course it feels like something is missing. So instead of treating retirement like a single leap, you start treating it like a separation process. You begin replacing pieces one at a time. You take your portfolio and translate it into income, not just a number. You understand what portion of your lifestyle still needs to be covered and where each stream will come from, whether that's Social Security, a pension rental income, part-time work, or your portfolio using something like the 4% rule. You look at health insurance as a line item, not a barrier, whether through ACA, COBRA private coverage, or a spouse's plan. And just as importantly, you start rebuilding the parts no spreadsheet can show. What does your week look like without work? Who are you spending time with? What are you moving toward? Because the goal isn't just to leave your job, it's to make sure there's something real waiting for you on the other side. So maybe the question isn't when you'll retire. Maybe the real question is this: have you actually separated your life from your job yet? Because the day you can answer that honestly, everything changes. You might still choose to work for another 10 years, or you might realize you're ready in the next 10 weeks. But either way, the fear starts to fade. Because you're no longer relying on your employer to define your time, your identity, or your purpose. You've already taken that back. And once you do, that retirement stops feeling like a cliff. It starts to feel like a door that's been unlocked for a long time. You just hadn't turned the handle yet.